like that noise at all. Well, guys, guess what I blew? I blew a friction disc. Can you see that? Can you see that? Okay, this has become a real chore right now at this point. I have the hex shaft, which is, this bearing will not come off on the right side. On the left side, okay, it came off. A little bit of, coaxing. You'll notice all these flanges are rusted. This is a 3-year-old machine, guys. This is the problem with Ariens. So, you guys that do these reviews on these virgin machines go, oh, it's great, it blows snow, it's wonderful. My friction disc cover plate, which is pretty much full of rubber from the friction disc. Coming up, you're going to see the disc and how the rubber has delaminated from it. There's a hex shaft. Below that is the actually friction drive plate, which is all rusted. It's usually, in the old days, it used to be a nice, bright, shiny metal. This thing is terrible. It's just oxidized. It's got rust all over it. That's going to take a lot of cleaning. The pinion shaft, which has got the big chain gear on it, along with the gear for the locking differential attached to the axles. That all had to be sanded and PB blasted and cleaned up so it could slide through the flanges. Couldn't get it out otherwise. You can look. It's a very severe rust. This is not, this is not parked in the parking lot at Chernobyl during a nuclear meltdown. This is, garaged and housed. Look at the groove for the belt, how fitted that is. That's going to give premature wear to the belt. You've got the plate down there for the auger belts, the two of them right on that. That's rusting as well. This is a total inferior metal that we got going on here. Coming up, you're going to see the this is the flange for the hex shaft. That's all pitted. That's been cleaned. These are shear bolts that came with the machine. They're all rusted. And now you're going to see the machine that has rust all over the wheels. It's one big rust bucket. Everything's rusted. I sprayed everything in here with PB Blaster. I got to clean it off. I'm going to take everything off with 3000 grit, clean it up. This is because the friction disc, which I'm going to get a close-up when I take it off. But now what I have to do, the small sprocket down in there, I don't know if you can see it, if this light, there you go, the small sprocket there, that only goes, the shaft has to go to the left. But the problem is I can't move the shaft to the left because this bearing has seized on the hex flange. So now what I have to do is I have to undo the cotter pin here, take this big gear off. I have to very carefully move the small chain sprocket down below there to the right, just enough to get this flange off here so I can get my cutoff wheel and cut this bearing off, and then slide everything to the left out on this side. Okay, and this is the problem. Alright, this is the hex shaft. Then I had the seized bearing that wouldn't come off on this side. You could see the rust. This is the side that it was on. This was the left-hand side that came off. No problem. This was the right-hand side, and you can see where the oxidation and the water formed this thing to rust. So what I had to do, this is basically the bearing as it was cut off. I had to cut it off in two pieces. As you can see, that was the bearing set on here like this. And then there was an outer side with the bearing. So this was the part. I had to cut it off with a cutoff wheel regardless. Went on, that was it. Cut it off. I mashed it. I don't know if you can see, it's rounded. I'm going to have to take that on my grinder and clean it up. But, the small chain sprocket goes on here. The bearing on the right side's here, and the bearing on the left side's here. Friction disc goes on here. Now let me show you that. I have the new friction disc on the left, and the old one that failed on the right. It wasn't old, 3 years old. As you can see, it's still plastic. The old ones were metal with the rubber on it. But this is a picture of the new bearing versus the old bearing. Bearings, balls, outer shell, and that's what I had to cut off. You can see that, double. But, you know, chain sprocket. To get the chain sprocket off, so I could get to that and cut it off. This sits like yay. I'll show you that one. I'm all greasy here now. This sits like this. Okay? This was completely rusted, and to take it off I had to go that way. I had to emery cloth this. 5 pieces of emery cloth. All rusted. This metal's terrible. This is throughout the whole... This is the most important part of a snowblower, guys, and whoever else. This is your drive mechanism. Not blowing snow. The machine blows snow great, but if it's not driving, you can't blow any snow, can you? This is what we're dealing with now. It's all in pieces. Focus there, you know. So even this metal here, the video is not showing up how rusted it is, but that's the main shaft. So, you know, it's one of these things. I really don't want to waste the time and clean that up because I'm not having a problem with it. But when it comes to get it off, I mean, I'm going to oil it up and grease it. Same thing with this plate. I got to clean that off now with 3000 grit. I'll start with 500, clean it up, get all the rust off of it, and, you know, I'll clean everything off in here too. And I'll show you when it goes back together. But basically, I'm blueprinting this and just cleaning it right back up. This used to be more of a brass fitting. And now it's this crappy metal, which if you can see it, it's oxidizing. Everything's oxidizing. Look at the bearings there. Excuse me, the flange. It's all rusted. That's a white metal. Look at this one. It's all rusted. You know, it's unbelievable. There's another angle of your large chain sprocket with the gear that goes into that little area is picked up by the automatic differential, which I'll show you when everything's put together. But, you know, once again, I want to show you the rust. Look at the rust. These are on the wheels, guys. These are on the wheels. Look at the rust. This is crazy. That's the inside of the wheels. That's why Ariens today is not what it used to be. There's the outside of the wheel. 3 years old. These are the axle shaft components. You've got the locking differential. That's the right side. If you notice that piece of metal with all the fissures in it, that's why it's all rusting. The metal is terrible. It's just like rot. So that's been hit once with the PB Blaster, a little bit of sandpaper. I really cleaned it up, which you're not going to see in this shot. You'll see when it's all put back together again. Well, the friction disc has been put back onto the hex shaft. It works nice and smooth, as you can see. The friction plate that the friction drive moves off of, that was completely wire brushed and sanded. The flanges are on with the bearings. The new bearing over here on the right side has been put in with the flange. You can see how rusted these flanges are. I don't know how much life they're going to give. But everything's getting ready here. The pinion shaft's been on with the big gear. The big chain sprocket with the gear on it. Now we've got everything assembled. We've got it greased, lubed. You notice everything's been cleaned up, sanded. There's a lot of work that went into this and cleaning this. Inexcusable for 22 hours, a little less than that, 3 years old. Totally inexcusable, all this rust. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's helped you guys. But this is what you need to do if you run into this problem, which I'm sure a majority of you will. It's just the old quality today in the US of A. Well, the Ariens is all set to start up. It's been put back together. You simply turn this on, in the on position, speed to full, choke to full, give a couple of pushes with the primer, make sure that your gas line is on in the down position, which it is. Pull the crank. Here we go. Whoa! Can you believe that? Oh my. This is what we call the icing on the cake.